Alright everybody, welcome back to iBluairJgR. Today we're going to have another chat. Most of the focus for the chat is going to be Final Fantasy XIV, but as I'm sure you've noticed over the last couple of weeks, there hasn't been a lot of content on the channel, but that is going to change in the near future. I've been taking a small break from Final Fantasy XIV, not for any dramatic reason like, oh, I think the game is bad now or anything to that effect, but after going pretty hardcore in Final Fantasy XIV 5.0 for about 2.5 months, I needed a little bit of breathing room, a little bit of time to engage with gaming in a way that feels a bit more natural. Generally speaking, content creators will engage with a game in excessive quantities. So where a normal gamer will play something like Final Fantasy XIV for, let's say, 10 hours a week, sometimes I'll average 10 hours a day, especially when Final Fantasy XIV 5.0 first launched. I was playing 12, 13, 14, 15 hours a day trying to beat that story, get all my characters leveled up as quickly as possible for relevancy reasons. And it worked out and it was a lot of fun. But now, after doing that for about 2.5 months, things simmer down, things get quiet, queue times get a bit longer, but something that hasn't changed is my enjoyment of Final Fantasy XIV. I haven't played it very heavily over the last 2 weeks, but I've been slowly but surely dialing things back up and leveling my bard. It's currently at level 77, and that's what you're seeing on screen now, and I've been having a blast with it. I'm not going to spoil all of my impressions, but that's the point though. There's excitement, there's passion, there's joy in playing the game, which directly affects my joy in making the content, because a huge part of what makes my content so good, and toot my own horn a little bit, is that there is a passion behind it. There is a joy behind every game that I play and every build that I come up with in Destiny, or every overview that I make for Final Fantasy XIV. There's a joy that's poured into it, and if I make those videos from a state of being jaded and tired of playing and uninterested in the game, then the videos won't be as good. And by the way, don't read too much into that. I'm not implying that there are content creators out there for Final Fantasy or any other game that don't have joy in what they do. Anyway, on that note, one game that I played last weekend was the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 open beta, and that was an absolute blast, though it wasn't without its frustrations. I've always been a fan of Call of Duty, but the last Call of Duty that I engaged with was Call of Duty Ghosts, which I believe was released in 2012 or 2013 or something. But in any case, the last Call of Duty that I was really deep into was Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, which was released an eternity ago. And when I found out that they are kind of going back to their roots with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019, I was very excited to jump in and try it. But I was also reminded of some of the things that I dislike about the Call of Duty game. The main thing that's always turned me off from the game, especially as I get older — I'm currently 27, and when I was playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare, I was however old I was back in 2007. You can do the math. I'm not going to do it right now. But the sensation of get a kill, die, and repeat is something that I have grown to dislike about the Call of Duty franchise, especially in game modes like Team Deathmatch and Domination. It feels like I am in a never-ending meat grinder. I get a kill, maybe two, somebody shoots me in the back of the head, I die, I respawn, and I do it all over again. And that endless meat grinder is very frustrating. But there are game modes in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 that completely eliminate that sensation because of the way that they're paced. And my favorite game mode from the open beta was the gunfight game mode. It's a 2v2. They put you in a significantly smaller arena, and it feels almost like an arena shooter, because instead of going in with a fixed loadout like you typically do in a Call of Duty game, you pick your weapons up off the ground and they're spread out around the map, with stronger weapons stationed in more difficult to reach areas. So if you really want to get a huge advantage, you have to push up and run the risk of getting shot while you're doing so. The main thing I was enjoying about Gunfight was the fact that it felt kind of like a hybrid between an arena shooter and a fighting game, and that almost doesn't make sense, but you've got to hear me out. This is about the essence of the game mode. So in a fighting game, you go up against your opponent, there's a couple of rounds, it's usually best out of 3 or best out of 5, and in the first round, you get to feel them out. You see what they like, you see what their strategies are, and if you lose, you have another round where you can adjust to their playstyle, but your opponent can also adjust and change things around and augment their approach just to mix things up, to ensure that you don't get used to their winning strategy, or they can try to press the advantage and hope that you don't make the appropriate adjustments. And that was something that I felt when I was going into Gunfight. In some of the best matches that I had, I really felt like I was thinking, okay, this guy keeps picking up the insert gun here and he's always staying in the back, so maybe I should push out and try to flank him, because he's watching the sight line and he's potentially a better shot than me, but maybe he's not as situationally aware, so I can potentially sneak up on him and get a kill that way. And going through that thought process in a much more slow and controlled way, as opposed to in domination. Again, it's that meat grinder. Bam, 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 kill die, repeat over and over and over again. It was nice. Another thing that's nice about Gunfight and Cyber Attack, and to a lesser extent Headquarters, is that there is a hard reset that happens whenever a round ends or whenever the objective shifts. This again plays into that fighting game style where you can have a really bad round and get 100 to 0'd, or in Headquarters specifically, your opponent can completely capture the entire point value of the Headquarters station, but another one's going to spawn. You're going to have a chance for everyone to regroup. We can take the next one. We can try to hold it down better. Whereas in domination, if your opponent establishes a power position and holds 2 points, every time you die and your teammates die and respawn, your opponent remains in their power position. Whereas in Headquarters and Gunfights, an opponent can seize a power position and they can use that power position to win a round or an objective, and then eventually that power position will be moved or reset. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be engaging with Gunfight a lot because I found it incredibly enjoyable, but Headquarters and Cyber Attack are definitely on that list of my top 3 game modes in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 as well. There are 1,000,001 problems with the game, of course, but I don't really feel like talking about them, so I'm not gonna. However, I will shift gears and talk about Borderlands 3 and Destiny 2. We'll start with Borderlands 3. I never engaged with any of the previous Borderlands games. It just wasn't something that was ever on my radar, but when Borderlands 3 was announced, I saw a lot of excitement for it from fans of the franchise, and when the game finally did release, I thought, what the hell, I'll check it out. Destiny 2 Shadowkeep got delayed a little bit till the end of October, so I can use Borderlands as something to kind of fill the gap a little bit. And what ended up happening is I enjoyed the game a lot more than I thought I would. Again, it's not a perfect game, just like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019, but it was a lot of fun, and I'm enjoying just playing through the characters and interacting with all the different weapons that exist in the game, making different builds. It's very exciting. It's a very different version of the shooter-looter from Destiny. And probably the biggest difference is that there is a certain crispness in the guns in Destiny 2 that's almost intangible, that doesn't exist in Borderlands. That's not to say that the shooting in Borderlands feels bad, but what they've done is that they've created certain weapons and certain guns that feel a little bit more gimmicky and cartoony and floaty, while also introducing some weapons that feel more like they belong in Call of Duty or Destiny. And the best example is the Jacobs manufacturer. They make a lot of bolt action rifles and traditional 6-shooter pistols, and those guns feel like they were just ripped straight out of Destiny 2. But then you've got the Malawan faction. They make laser weapons, projectile based weapons. They all have a charge time. They feel significantly different than most of the guns that exist in Destiny, and they are everywhere. There are so many different kinds to try. And then take things a step farther, we've got the different elements on the weapon. If you've got a fire element weapon, it sets enemies on fire and deals damage over time, but also fire element guns deal more damage to health but reduce damage to shields. So there's this whole extra layer of depth to the combat in Borderlands that doesn't exist on the same level in Destiny, which is nice, right? It's nice that there are those differences. So Borderlands does lean a little bit more on traditional RPG mechanics with resistances, and it's very heavy on the stats and creating a build, whereas Destiny has always felt to me like it leans a bit more on the first-person shooter side of things. Now, it is very possible to push the ability usage and the magic, the space magic in Destiny, and that's something that I like to do with the builds that I create, but at its core, Destiny is a first-person shooter first. Now, they've obviously rebranded themselves as an action MMO, but we all know the truth. It's still a first-person shooter. It's still a shooter-looter. They still ensure that the shooting mechanics take precedence over ability usage and fancy magic and shenanigans that go on. And again, that's not to say that the magic and shenanigans that exist in Destiny aren't to a very high quality. But, in my opinion, the shooting at Destiny will always be the core, and the other stuff kind of branches around that. And it's going to be very interesting to see how the Shadowkeep expansion shakes things up a little bit, because the Armor 2.0 system is leaning a bit more into build creation, and because build creation is going to be a bit more accessible to the average player, we might see a little bit more of a lean and a tilt towards using gimmicky space magic-y builds, as opposed to people leaning on hand cannons and shotguns so much in their general play. So that's going to be something very exciting for me to dive into as someone that likes to create builds and push the limits of what a character can do. So look, man, Borderlands, Call of Duty, Destiny, Final Fantasy XIV, it's all been a lot of fun over these last couple of weeks engaging with all these different titles, but what I'm most looking forward to is getting back into Final Fantasy XIV, especially when the 5.1 patch releases, which hopefully should be sometime this October. But I am also incredibly excited for Destiny 2 Shadowkeep, because that is right around the corner. I've got a lot of fun stuff planned for build videos, overviews, things of that nature. Hopefully I get some good luck with exotics this go around so I can make a lot of reviews for those things. But man, oh man, there's a lot of stuff coming in October, and guys, you gotta stay tuned. Before we close out, I want to give a shout out to my newest patron, David Chap. You are freaking awesome, dude. You gave me a shout out in my Discord server, and now you're a patron, and it's freaking awesome. Thank you for all the kind words, and I greatly appreciate it. Also, Musa, I accidentally took your name off of the patron list, and you're back on there now, so thank you for your continued support, and I apologize for making the mistake, dude. You're freaking awesome. And of course, everyone else who is a patron, you are also awesome. With all of that said, if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to support the channel more than you already do just by watching, liking, subscribing, and commenting, you can head over to patreon.com/iBluairJgR to become a patron. As always, the name of the game is Final Fantasy XIV, Call of Duty, Borderlands, Destiny 2, whatever. The name of the channel is iBluairJgR. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.